On today's episode of Exploring Politics, we bring you a very interesting panel discussing the returning of the slavery exhibit to the city of Philadelphia, Jack Smith's investigation into election fraud, and Trump's Board of Peace formed on Gaza. Please stay tuned. Hello and welcome back to Exploring Politics. I'm your host, Peter Rapp, and today with me is a assemblage of new people and old on our panel today, bringing many interesting issues. So Nick, would you like to start us off introducing yourself?
My name is Nicholas Chohodzane. I am a freshman poli-sci major here at LaSalle.
Gabby.
My name is Gabrielle Fletcher. I am a junior PPE major at LaSalle.
And hello again, everyone. As you know, Desmond Long. I am a junior history and political science double major with a minor in international relations. And I think Peter just means experience when he says old.
We are getting up there in the years, though, Des. So, Nick, would you like to start us off for your first episode of Exploring Politics, explaining your issue and what's going on with the slavery exhibit?
Of course. Well, relatively currently, on January 22nd of 2026, National Park Services were ordered to remove the slavery exhibit down at the President's House, also known as George Washington's House, down at Independence Mall. This all came as a result of an executive order from President Trump. And then relatively recently, Judge Cynthia Roof ordered the Trump administration to restore the exhibit by tomorrow, exactly at 5 o'clock.
Now, I remember you told me before that we started shooting today that they're putting it back now, or?
Yeah, currently there were reports from other news outlets that there have been seen or national park workers have been seen beginning the installation process of reinstalling the multiple panels depicting the history of the 9 slaves that were owned by our nation's first president.
Yeah, I mean, do you guys have any thoughts on this? Or?
Would you like to go first, or?
I mean, when I initially heard about the issue, I actually saw it on the news, but following that, I actually saw it on Twitter. And the post that I saw on Twitter was essentially a debate. People were debating between the initial comment was about the exhibit being removed, and there were some of the comments, and they were essentially saying, they didn't understand how the slavery exhibit being removed was an issue in comparison to Confederate statues being removed. So that was like the first instance that I heard of it, that I saw of it on like social media platform. And that was just interesting to me because I couldn't, it's kind of, like as a PPE major, it's kind of hard to explain or trying to have like a debate with people online, especially when they're not like knowledgeable on the topic. It's like comparing Confederate statues to like slavery exhibits, like come on.
You know, Gabby, I think you made a very good point bringing up the fact of Confederate statues, because I think that this whole issue is just a highlight of this administration's hypocrisy. I mean, this is from an administration that complained and, cried all day long about people wanting to tear down statues of Confederate leaders and Confederate generals, but now they're reversing course and wanting to remove statues talking about slavery and effectively try to erase history. But I think there's a very big difference between these slave exhibits and these Confederate monuments. The Confederate monuments and these memorials, they honor men who literally tried to overthrow our country and institute their own order, and they basically said that what we have going on in our country is not working. We want to do it ourselves, and we want slavery to be the backbone of that nation. I mean, we can talk all about how George Washington owned slaves, Thomas Jefferson owned slaves and everything such as that, but the fact of the matter is that they fought for more than just slavery in our country. They actually fought to create our country, while Confederates tried to fight to destroy our country and the very principles that our country stands on. And so for them to go and kind of erase the history of the slaves who helped build this country, who helped make sure that our country is what it is today, is just another highlight of this administration's hypocrisy. Over and over again, they say one thing, and then they do actions that reverse course and change their mind. And so it just shows that this is what happens when you have an administration that doesn't have historians in the room. Same way how they don't have economists in the room when they're trying to make issues related to tariffs or anything such as that. This administration is run by people who don't know what they're doing in regards to the topics and things that they are dealing with.
I think that's well said. And also, I don't know anyone in the city of Philadelphia who took issue with that monument being there. I go to Independence Hall. I've went a couple times this year. It's interesting to see that exhibit. It's important to remember the history of our country and that, yeah, I mean, George Washington was our nation's founder, a very important man, did a lot of good things, but he also did own slaves. And it's important to remember that all of our country is built upon the exploitation of people who had no say in the matter, and they were forced to do so violently. And I think that trying to erase that history is exactly what those Confederates would want. So I think it's very hypocritical to suggest that we should keep Confederates but not the slave monument. I don't necessarily support keeping Confederate monuments. I think we should get rid of them because they worship kind of that history. Meanwhile, the slave exhibit just educates, and I think that that's a big difference as well in making that distinction. Nick, do you have any other thoughts on the issue, or?
I'm in the same boat with you guys. I think it's a disgrace that that Philadelphia lost this exhibit for a little while just because of what our president was doing. It's a travesty in the fact, because this exhibit doesn't do any harm. All it does is just show the rather checkered history of the U.S. It gives you a whole nother perspective into this one person that we idolize, but we don't know all about it. There's always so much more to know.
And do you know why? I know a judge ordered that it be placed back. Do you know what the judge's specific reasoning was, or the law or like the case that they drew on for it? It's all right if you don't.
At this moment, I'm currently blanking.
No, all good.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is not the first case that the Trump administration has lost on appeal to a judge after making a big executive order for seemingly no reason. Anyone else have any thoughts on this, or we could move on to the next topic?
I just think that I want people at home to really understand that Confederate monuments and memorials, when they're in public places, they're glorifying and idolizing, again, men who tried to tear apart our country. You can have this debate of whether or not, what do we do with these statues? You can put them in like a private place such as a museum, or you still have them out in public. If you put them in places such as museums, that way the people that actually wish to go and see them can go around and go and see them. But if you have them in the middle of a public park and say, Washington, D.C., like the Albert Pike Memorial. Albert Pike was a Confederate general. He's the only Confederate general to have a memorial in D.C. Then that's where we really get into the issue of what are we going to do with these statues.
Yeah, so now it's time to move on to your topic, Gabrielle. Would you like to introduce it to us?
Okay, so my topic is going to be the election fraud investigation conducted by Jack Smith. Jack Smith is a career prosecutor. He hails from New York, Syracuse specifically. In November of 2022, he was appointed by McGarland essentially to investigate Donald Trump's involvement into the 2020 election fraud. He brought about 4 charges from the investigation. He had a charge of attempted conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to obstruct official precedent, and also obstruction of an official proceeding, and then finally conspiracy against civil rights, specifically voter rights. The case was heavily surrounded on the actions concluding January 6th with the insurrection of the Capitol. And also I'd like to mention Fani Willis, specifically her investigation into Donald Trump. Fani Willis is a prosecutor. She's from Georgia, which is essentially where this investigation took place in. So Trump, after the 2020 election, when the results came back and they were not up to his par, he decided to call around officials around the state of Georgia, essentially attempting to get the voter polls. He wanted to redraw them, and he came to the conclusion that there was fraud into that. So based on that assumption or conclusion that he came to, he decided to get on social media and tell the whole world. So after that is when January 6th happened, and Yeah, so what did you guys have any opinions on that?
I think that my opinion is, it's a bit of a pessimistic opinion. And it kind of goes in vain when we talked about the Epstein files last week. We could have all these investigations into things and find all this evidence and everything, but what is going to come of this? What are they going to do? Arrest the president of the United States? Arrest his entire cabinet? You cannot nullify an entire presidential administration. So I think that we can say, oh yes, there was fraud. He cheated in the election. This, and that. What are they going to do about it? Are they going to reinstate the rightful Kamala Harris or Joe Biden, the rightful winner of the election and everything like that? We've already had recent first in American history. History is always changing, and we've been seeing a lot of history happening in the past few months. But this is just something that I truly think there are more important things to focus on. I'm not just knocking your topic at all, Gabe. Let me make that very clear. I'm just saying that all these special prosecutors, we have allegations of fraud. We got them tied down to the wire and everything. I don't think anything substantial is going to come out of this, because if you remove Donald Trump, okay, well then we have his vice president next in line to take the office. What are you going to, like I said, wipe out the entire administration? So again, that's my pessimistic view on it.
I think this definitely does connect to a bigger issue in American politics, where historically, if a politician does some big wrongdoing, look at Nixon, Watergate scandal, he gets impeached. He steps down even before impeachment can really get him. Trump seems to be resistant to impeachment. He has been impeached. He has not been removed. Even if he has all of these legal charges against him, Congress is not going to move to impeach him. The law, as we understand it, that a lot of these prosecutors understand it, that the law has been broken. There needs something should be done. I agree. Will something be done? No. I think our system no longer has the actual capacity to follow through on the laws. I think the law doesn't necessarily mean anything anymore. It's really about power now. And Trump has all of the power. And did he achieve that power through election fraud? I think it's quite possible. Are we really going to get a full investigation into it? I think no. I think Trump and his legion are going to try to obscure that in any way possible. Is there ever going to be an actual trial? Absolutely not. If there was going to be a trial for Trump, I think we would probably want to take the Epstein files first. But again, that's already been totally wrangled by Pam Bondi. I think there's a total cover-up. And I think it's not just a cover-up of the Epstein files, it's a cover-up of all of their wrongdoings, because this entire crusade into power has been on the back of manipulations of the public and a conspiracy against voter rights, a conspiracy against the American people. And I think until we get them out of office, we are not going to be able to fully prosecute or fully pursue justice. And it's really unfortunate, but I think it's just how it is. How do you feel about the situation, Nick?
I feel very similar to what you and Des have said. I hate to be the pessimistic one, like what Des said, but it's just a shame, really. It's no matter what we do, it seems like justice is just not going to be carried out. It's always going to end up with something halting the gears of justice, halting the spinning wheels. Something will pop up. We will never get this trial until, who knows, even if they're out of office. Will we get the trial? Possibly. Will something come about it? Probably not. As Peter said, he's resistant to impeachment.
He's been impeached like 2 times at this point.
Hey, I do want to touch on that. Sorry, not if you were finished.
Go ahead.
I do want to touch on that. We can exalt the founders. All we want to know, definitely, these are the men responsible for our country. But when they made the Constitution, I believe that they messed up with impeachment. Impeachment is so deliberately vague in the terms of high crimes and misdemeanors. The president must commit high crimes and misdemeanors for him to be impeached by Congress. What exactly are high crimes and misdemeanors? We saw during Bill Clinton's trial, high crimes and misdemeanors were perjury and obstruction of justice. But then we saw during one of the Trump impeachments, fighting to overturn the country January 6th and everything such as that. So it's like, the impeachment guidelines are so vague that it just makes impeachment worthless at this point, because no matter what, the president's party is going to support them no matter what, unless in very rare circumstances, or the opposing party. It basically like that. And so impeachment, there's a reason why out of the 4 times we've had an impeachment in the U.S., no U.S. president has ever been convicted and removed from office, because it is deliberately made to kind of work against itself. And I think the founders probably had better hopes for us in the future and everything in our present day, but in our present day now, we just can't compromise and come to an agreement and see the law the way that they probably did back then.
Now, I can appreciate the pessimistic ideology that you guys have, but I'd also like to emphasize the point of this. I think not only like invest in election fraud, like we all understand how big of an issue that is, but I think it also goes to push how important education is, because in the sense of not only the election fraud, but this administration in general, there are so many people prior to this that didn't understand politics. They weren't too interested in it. They didn't think that it mattered that much. But I just think this administration is just so corrupt and so, I guess, original in a sense that you've never seen this before. So it's something new for people to understand. And there's so many more people that are getting involved into politics and beginning to understand what goes on in politics, the different branches. You'd be surprised how many people actually didn't even know there were 3 branches of government prior to this. So aside from if anything does happen or not, which I agree with what you guys said, it most likely won't happen, unfortunately. I just think it just gives another approach and emphasis on the need for education, constant education, civics specifically.
Yeah, I think that's a very good takeaway. I think that ultimately, systemically, nothing much is going to come of it, but historically, the general thought of the people also tends to move the gears of history. And when people begin to think about these things more and recognize these things, we move on to better understandings and do things better the next time. So when we make a new system, maybe next time we'll add better articles of impeachment. But Des, would you like to introduce your topic now on Trump's Board of Peace formed on Gaza?
Yes, so for our final topic today, folks, I will be talking about how today at the U.S. Institute of Peace, although according to the White House, this institute has just been recently renamed to the Donald J. Trump Institute on Peace, the U.S. has had its first meeting of the Board of Peace. So basically what the Board of Peace is that it was a coalition between the U.S. and 40 other countries that they invited, basically to figure out what to do with Gaza for the future, for the end of the war, and also for its redevelopment. Now, at this summit today, the U.S. promised to commit $10 billion to the redevelopment for Gaza, although they did not specify how that $10 billion will be reallocated. But one thing worth mentioning is that some key U.S. allies were absent, such as the U.K., France, Norway, Sweden, and the Vatican, which all countries basically refusing to join, declining, I should say, to join with the summit. While countries such as Armenia, Egypt, Hungary, Pakistan, Turkey, and the UAE all agreed to go and actually sent representatives to this meeting today. There's also a possibility that Russia may join as well. They declined to attend this first meeting, but said that they're going to figure out something for future meetings. And in addition to this $10 billion for Gaza redevelopment that the Trump administration committed, Trump also said that it would be possible that we would see military action in Iran in the next 10 days. And so this Board of Peace was originally focused on Gaza, but now appears to have widened to other worldwide conflicts. So what do y'all think on that? Peace in our time.
I'd like to just start with saying the issue with Gaza is not, I think it's a hard issue for just one country to attempt to solve. Not even just one country, just this Board of Peace. It's hard. I think it'd be hard for them to even attempt to fix this issue because countries are self-interested. That's just the reality of it. Countries are self-interested, and this whole issue with Gaza is more about territory. So it's like, regardless, Donald Trump thinks being peaceful is him sending soldiers over there. I'm just confused on how exactly he think peace would be achieved by that. Regardless of the amount of soldiers you send, the amount of money that you put into this, that you invest into the country, it's over territory. So I'm not understanding like his takeaway from this.
I also forgot to mention territory. Israel also just accepted their invitation to this event just a few days ago as well. So some countries, it took them a minute to accept, and Israel was the most recent one to accept their invitation. Just putting it out there. Nick.
Quick question. So what, did they send a representative yet, or?
Yes, so the countries that did accept it, they sent a
Yeah, okay.
representative today during today's meeting. It was earlier this morning.
Okay.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, but did you have any?
I just want to say, the whole idea of the peace talks, but yet we want to send what? You said it as what, military into Iran?
Yes.
How does that even, that's what it feels laughable.
Yeah, I have the same question. A board of peace that's sending troops into Iran, a board of peace that's inviting Israel and Russia.
Two
countries that are currently engaged
conflict,
in
yeah.
military operations with their neighbors. I feel like this board of peace is ironically named like the 1984. What's the slogan? War is peace.
Oh yes, from the Orwell book,
just
yes.
totally ridiculous. Totally disregarding any homage to the truth or to human rights or peace. These are all words that have guided U.S. policy throughout the 20th century. As we wanted to ensure world peace, we wanted to ensure prosperity and freedom, democracy. But now they're just justifications. I think at this point we can see that we're not actually bringing peace, we're not bringing democracy, we're not resolving any conflict. Essentially, I think what this Board of Peace is all of the powers invested in the conflict in Gaza and in Israel, trying to take a slice of the pie, trying to figure out how they can some way profit from it, make deals to turn it into a strip mall, I believe Donald Trump has said before.
Yes.
I also think it's interesting. Jared Kushner has been talked about being appointed to oversee this Board of Peace thing. He's involved, right?
Jared Kushner was actually just at the Davos summit in Switzerland a few weeks ago,
Right.
where multiple world leaders and businessmen and titans of industry all meet together to discuss their own plans to help out the world and to create peace and everything. And Jared Kushner did bring a similar plan to Davos, and I believe he was turned down. I believe that his idea didn't really get any footing. So it appears that maybe this Board of Peace will be a bit more successful.
And whatever happened to Tony Blair? I know that there were talks
Yeah,
a little bit ago of
I-
having
you know,
Tony Blair, who also,
Yeah.
notably recently it was discovered, was having Epstein over to 10 Downing Street, taking Epstein for a tour of 10 Downing Street. So I don't know if Tony Blair is the best guy to oversee this, but whatever happened to his plan?
The article I read didn't mention anything about Tony Blair. So I wonder if, I'm sure we'll hear some news on that in the future. I have to read it,
Yeah.
look that up afterwards. But I also do want to point out about the military action in Iran. Iran is currently wrapped in their own problems. The Iranian government has been killing thousands of people in the streets because these are people that are fed up with their government and are trying to basically take back control, take back more power for themselves. I mean, the Iranian Revolution in the 70s saw a more Islamic approach in the sense that Iran was going to become more traditional, like how it used to be. No more West. But now the people are getting fed up with that. And the news, I haven't heard any news organizations talking about that. The only reason we've been talking about that is thanks to my classes where we've been talking about imperialism. And my professor, Dr. Stemmes, is a professor on the modern Iran. And so for us to be launching military action in Iran while they're going through their own thing, I mean, it's a bit of an overkill. I mean, don't you think? I mean, who knows? Maybe in the next few years, they might even have an Ayatollah anymore. They might have their own republic, their own constitutional government. So I just think that, this Board of Peace, hypocritical and contradictory. I think that's the theme for the Trump administration this second time around and for today's episode. Hypocrisy and pretty much it. Yeah.
Now, and you said 10 million to go
10
to
billion.
10 billion.
10 billion.
Okay. Speaking of the 10 billion, I just would love to emphasize the fact that the United States has been known to give nations money in order to help their economy, to build their economy. However, on the back end, all of that help is always tied to something. We'll give you help, but you have to do this. We'll give you help, but you can only buy these resources from American. You can only buy American products. You can only shop with our allies. So every time the U.S. attempts to give help, there's always some sort of consequence that comes with it. Like, you can't just always accept the money and don't think there's something going on in the back end. There's always some causals, constraints tied with the money that the U.S. gives. And also, in terms of the U.S. sending soldiers, Every time the U.S. sends soldiers, on our attempts to pull the soldiers out, we always leave the country in a lot more chaos than it was prior to us even going.
Yeah, so I think now would be a perfect time to move over to our last little segment of the show for our final thoughts. So, Nick, would you like to start us off? You went first today. What are your final thoughts on this episode and everything we talked about?
I feel like my final thoughts are, just to sum up our administration, really, it's our administration currently with Trump is doing a lot of chaotic hypocrisy. Thank you, Des. I can't speak today clearly. A lot of hypocrisy, a lot of chaos, and it's just a shame. The country is going to have some lasting consequences because of this, and we're doing what I think is, frankly, some chaotic behavior, interfering in outside of our country with multiple different things. Probably going to get involved in a issue with Iran with their ongoing revolution and our now possible interference.
Yeah, I mean, it's grim. Gabrielle, what do you think?
I think my final thoughts are just more towards education, a push for people to become knowledgeable on politics just in general. It's not just about this administration and what this administration is doing specifically. It's about politics in general. And politics isn't just America. It's the China, it's the UA, it's the UE, it's all the countries. So I just think people just need to be more knowledgeable on the topic. And also, yes, I agree with what they're saying. This administration is very, very hypocritical. But I don't think that anyone should think that their opinion doesn't matter. Like I said, I just think it's important to just make sure you're very knowledgeable on the information that you're speaking on. Just making sure that,
All right, now Des?
I think, hypocrisy is the word to go to, the word of the day for the Trump administration. Confederate monuments, but no slavery exhibits. $10 billion to Gaza, but yet we're going to cut off aid for the rest of the world with the cut of U.S. aid and everything. And also, our citizens get to go starving and homeless and everything like that. Military action in Iran, but from the administration that said no new wars. So it really is a shame that, Donald Trump, in my opinion, again, this is my opinion, is a con man, and he really was able to convince many Americans that he was going to do right. And now hypocrisy is the word of today.
All right, well, thank you all for being on the show today. You guys did great for your first time. I would love to have you back on in the future. I hope to see you more, and I hope you guys tune in more next time. Please go follow our Instagram, Exploring Politics LTV. And just always remember these conversations are important, and we need to keep having them. Tune in next time. Have a nice day.